Right on. All right, so we will get going today on the 16th. We talked about the 15th Amendment last week. Any questions? Anybody read anything? Anybody have anything to bring up? As far as not suffrage by race, right to vote shall not be abridged based on your race, color, previous condition of servitude. Nothing? Everybody good? All right, so we'll move on to the 16th Amendment. 16th should go pretty quick. It's short. But man, did it screw up this country. I'm starting to find as I go through this thing with the rugged Constitution, right? I loved the rugged Constitution to start, but the rugged Constitution appears to me now to be a little pro-government for me. When they're talking about the 16th Amendment in here, they make it sound all rosy and it's just, you know what, man, you just give them the power to tax income and we get money to run the federal government. It's all great. They left out the whole part about Article 1, Section 2. Renee, I'm going to need you to keep up on that because I can't see everybody.
Yep.
The muting. All right. So anyway, we'll get to the 16th. I don't think personally that any amendment more so than the 16th and 17th change the course for America, not for the better. And we'll get into the 17th next week. Actually, we'll probably do the 17th and 18th next week. 18th was obviously prohibition. That was repealed, but we'll read it so we know what it says. Next week's meeting or 2 weeks, I guess, will be the only meeting where you are going to be required to drink something. So if you don't drink, I'm going to need you to at least bring, a sip of something. Because if we're going to talk about prohibition, we are absolutely 100% going to be drinking something. So next week will be 17 and 18 to get those done.
Is that the last meeting before?
Yeah, I think
November
so.
6th?
You know what? I was actually going to go back to the normal schedule next week. Ella's last volleyball game is Thursday, but Mike apparently has another week left at least. He's there now. They're going into their fourth game, and it's senior night, so I don't expect Mike to blow off senior night to be here for me. But I'll probably do one more meeting. That'll be the last one at 9 o'clock, and then we'll go back to every week at 8.
So are we?
We only have one more meeting before the 6th.
Yes.
Correct.
8:30 instead, like a happy compromise.
Hello.
I'll do whatever the federal government wants me to do. Like, you know me, I'm a rule follower, and I appreciate the work that they put in. So, but whatever you guys want. You know what? Maybe I can put a post up, and you guys can chime in. Whatever you want.
So that will be on the 26th.
I just feel like 9 o'clock's too late. Well, the next meeting will still be 9 o'clock. And then after that, we'll switch.
We'll go back to 8 o'clock.
Yeah, 8 o'clock, 8:30. I mean, if it has to be. I just feel 9 o'clock's too late. I feel like now that summer's over. So, all right. So moving on here, 16th Amendment. So why am I not able to? What's going on here? There we go. All right. So what does it say? 16th Amendment says that Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Sounds pretty easy. The only problem I have with it is it actually goes exactly against and flies in the face of everything the founders outlined in the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, and Section 9. If you remember back, Article 1, Section 2, and Section 9, the federal government had the right to collect taxes, but it was, well, let's talk about it. So how did it come to be? So prior to 1913, there was no income tax. Taxation was governed under Article 1, Section 2, and 9, and was through apportionment, or capitation taxation is what it's called. Now, basically, in a nutshell, what that is a flat tax, right? It was all based on census. It was all based on population of your states. If your state was 4% of the United States, of the United States and the budget for the United States, then you were going to pay a 4% flat tax. If your state, and this is the one I'll use because it's easy for math, if your state was 10%, then everybody in the state paid 10%. So if you made $1 million, you paid $100,000. If you made $10,000, you paid $1,000. So obviously the rich paid more, but it was fair across the board. Now there's a lot of discussion out there about how it was really hard for the government to keep up on this, and it was hard for them to implement this across the states. I don't know. I mean, the things I read seem like it wasn't too hard. It wasn't hard enough that the founders thought that they should leave it out. That is the way the founders wanted it run. That's the way it was run until with few exceptions, until 1913. In the late 1800s, federal government levied a 3% tax on those they considered very wealthy. Supreme Court said no. They said that was unconstitutional. They could not do that, that it had to be fair across the board. It had to be through apportionment. The ones that they figured were very wealthy were those with an income, a yearly income of over $4,000. So you made $4,000. Now, where have we heard this before, right? They wanted the rich to pay their fair share. Now, the federal government, when I say that, this is where the progressives were starting to come out. And this was a progressive ideology where they wanted the rich to pay their fair share. Now, they had done this before. They had done it during the Civil War, and that was ruled constitutional because we needed the money to fund the war. Nobody had a problem with that. They started it, don't quote me on it. Somebody have to look it up. But I think it was 1862. By 1871, they repealed it. They did it just to pay for the war. Nobody seemed to have a problem with it. Come I think it was 94 is when, there's no war going on. There's nothing going on. And Congress decides that they're just going to levy a 3% tax on at the time, the ultra wealthy. Supreme Court had a big problem with that, told them they couldn't do it. And hello, progressivism.
Sounds very socialistic.
It does. And it's, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? So government being government, what they decided to do was to work an end game, and figured that they would start trying to sneak these things into bills like they do now. And they figured that they would come up with the 16th Amendment. Now, strangely enough, and from a lot of what I've read, and I haven't seen it in enough places, but I've seen it in enough places that I think it's probably true, that the conservatives thought that there was no way at all that the states were ever going to go for an income tax. All right. So the way they wanted to run this income tax was a progressive income tax. And that's literally what it's called, is a progressive income tax. And it means just that now the government, according to the 16th Amendment, is going to get to decide how much you pay based on who you are and based on how much you make. And we all know how this works now, right? Everybody's in different tax brackets. Some of us don't pay any taxes. The way this was outlined in the Constitution, more than fair. Now, the richest among us don't pay taxes. Illegals are not paying taxes, but getting all of our services. It's just a crapshoot on what you're going to pay. And there's so many loopholes. I mean, you look at the tax code. You guys remember when Rand Paul was doing his shtick with the tax code, because he's still pushing for flat tax, and he would take a chainsaw to it. And it's like, I can't even fit it in the screen. I mean, it is like this thick. It's crazy how much, how you're supposed to understand what you owe, who owes what. It seems to work a lot better than a flat tax, I guess. So in 1909, during the debates, several representatives feel the income tax should only be used in times of war. And there's heated debate about it. And there's a lot of them. New York, Massachusetts, these guys are all coming out and saying, look, we're for it, but it should only be used in time of war to support the government, right? It shouldn't just be forever. We shouldn't just be able to take people's money that they're making. Now, up until this point, we were making all of our money mainly off foreign tariffs for goods that were coming in, which I don't have any problem with, and through apportionment. So it was either everybody was paying the same amount, Everybody, it was fair wherever you were, right? If you didn't want to pay a whole lot, I guess you moved to a less populous state. The more populous states, they were paying a little more, but they were using a lot more of the services. So it all worked out and it was all fair. So these representatives felt that it should only be used in times of war. And you would think, oh, now here's the interesting part. So the conservatives think no way in hell that this thing is going to go through. There's no way the states are going to say, yeah, we think you should be able to take our money. And they actually signed on to the 16th Amendment. And the reason that they did this was because they thought that if the 16th Amendment went through, failed to ratify, that was going to put income tax to bed forever. We were never going to have to worry about it again. Failed to ratify, at least for, decades and decades and decades and decades. It would be a done deal. The states will have spoken. The states will have said, no, we don't want this. And so they signed on and they supported it. Well, government being government, it passed 300, even though we had all of this, these heated debates, it passed 318 to 14. Now there were a couple, there was one that voted present. There was 55 that didn't vote. But the ones that showed up, and it made 2/3, 318 to 14 in the House. Passes the Senate, goes to ratification, and it's ratified by the states February 25th, 1913. So the conservatives sign on. They think, hey, man, the way that we're going to avoid this forever, never have to deal with this income tax issue again, is by sending it to be ratified. And the states are all going to speak and they're going to say no, and we're going to be done. Well, February 25th, 1913. Thank you. Now we have an income tax. And once they get the income tax, never getting rid of the income tax, right? This isn't the 18th Amendment where we're going to be able to overturn this thing. It's here forever.
And that's where the line "war is profit" came from.
Yeah. Well, yeah, really.
I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but then
no, I mean, really, they make a lot of money. They made a lot of money on the Civil War. I mean, Civil War ended what, 1865, and this thing went till 1872, I believe. So they were still making money on it to pay off their war debt, and nobody seemed to care. And the Supreme Court even upheld it. And had they not been greedy, they could have paid for a 20-year war right now with the income tax. Well, they don't need to because they got the income tax. They got it in the 16th. Now, my problems with the 16th are obviously that like I said, it flies in the face of what the founders wanted. For the life of me, I don't understand, and there's probably more reading to be done on this. For those of you that are new here, listen, I'm no teacher. I'm no constitutional scholar. All I do is read the Constitution. There's more to read on this. And this is a basic understanding of the Constitution. It's for you guys to know what the 16th Amendment says, but there's tons of case law out there. There's a ton more reading we can do on this. But for the life of me, I cannot understand how something like this was ratified by 3/4 of the states. It's just insane to me. Woodrow Wilson, I think, man, I would have to look at his term. I thought 1913 was the first year he was in office. So this thing started before he was there, but Woodrow Wilson ran on a progressive platform. And he did a lot. He did a lot to further that progressive platform, and the progressives have never stopped since. 17th is him. And the 17th Amendment is another one that I will talk about in 2 weeks, but I just don't understand it. That's the one that changed the way that senators were chosen, right? The founders had them being chosen by the states on purpose, and 17th Amendment, now they're chosen by the people, just like the House of Representatives is chosen by the people. And it doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know why it's stood for so long. It's one of those that makes me just get so mad at the government. Not that I'm going to do any, I'm not that mad. I mean, mad's probably not the right word. Daniela, please don't report back.
Upset. Dogs get mad.
Well, my shirt today,
Hi, Rory.
my shirt today is freedom is my second favorite F word. So
Nice.
yeah. So yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand the 16th. I don't understand the 17th. But that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Completely in the face of the Constitution, completely in the face of Article 1, Section 2, Section 9. I don't know. I just don't understand it. So what do you guys think?
I'll tell you what, Jim, I don't know if they're related or not, but it's the same year that the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Act was passed.
No, they're related. That's all Woodrow Wilson, man. He brought, Woodrow Wilson started the Federal Reserve. Yeah, these were bad times for America, man. These took us down a different path right here. This is what started us on the road we're on right now, for sure.
But playing devil's advocate, I think it gave us the base for our government to be as big as it was.
Sure,
to stand up
sure.
in World War I.
Yeah, they were a whole lot more centralized before they passed the 16th.
Yeah,
They didn't have nearly the money to do what they're doing now. And they would not, had we not passed the 16th, I don't think they would have the money to do what they're doing now, right? The Department of Education, healthcare, social welfare,
everything after 9/11.
Name just about any alphabet agency. I don't think they would have the money, but this gave them so much money that they just grew exponentially.
Imagine how much different our country would be right now if that was not ratified.
If we had just followed the Constitution.
Right.
Now you say follow the Constitution, but it's not, you can't say that the 16th Amendment is unconstitutional because they followed the process. They followed Article 5. It just baffles me how it went through.
It will be interesting to really go in and look at each state's arguments as they were looking at this and see how they came to the conclusion that they came to ratify it.
Well,
and see how they think about that stuff today. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how are those states today? Like California, New York, how highly taxed they are. Like,
well, New York was one of them. New York was one of them that was saying, look, man, we're not on board with this. Maybe not the entire state. There were representatives from New York that were saying, look, we're not on board with this. We think that we should keep this strictly for wartime. There's no reason at all to be taxing people for no reason.
Yeah, but then after a while, the states were like, well, we want our cut too. And then the city was like, I want my cut too. And the county was like, maybe we can.
Well, and that's what happens, right? That's how the federal government wins everybody over. The federal government's bringing all this money, and had the federal government just kept all this money, there would have been a revolt. But they're smart, and they don't, and they give money back to the states. They're giving us our own money back. They're giving us money back that would have been here in the first place had we not given it to the federal government. But we're not getting it all back, right?
They did it with stimulus.
Right. And for every $100 we're giving them, we're getting what, $20 back maybe, for roads, and the rest of it's going to other states and going to other places and going to other pet projects and going to Pakistan so they can study gender studies. And it's sickening. They throw us just enough where now we're dependent on them. And that's what I was saying last week. If the states are going to stand up, better be ready to pay up. And I think we need to, but you just better be ready to pay up because they're going to cut our money off. They're going to keep taking it. They're not going to say, well, if you don't agree with what we're doing, we're not going to give you any federal, we're not going to give you, federal highway funds, but then we're not going to take that money from you. We're going to let you keep that money. They're not going to do that. They're going to keep taking your money. They're just not going to give it to you. And that's your money. That is our money that they're stealing from us.
So how does that work then? Like, how can we say, no, we've had enough of this? Like, if we had the right representatives at the state level and they take a poll and they are going with their constituents saying, we've had enough, we're not paying this, and you're not taking any more money from our constituents either. How do you go about that?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but that's some big bullshit right there, huh?
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
That is, I don't know. And I'll tell you what, the problem is going to be, say what you will about California, right? But, and the same thing I talk about nullification every time is marijuana laws, because that is nullification of process. You're actually seeing it happening right now. you're seeing nullification happening across the United States. And California was the
Yeah.
first one to take that step. And to
But
be
when
that
it-
first state to take that step is scary, man, because the federal government's going to come in and try to squash you to send a
Yeah,
message
but
to the
when
rest of the states.
when it comes to income tax, though, you try nullification in your state, and all of a sudden you don't get that federal funding.
100%.
That is a lot more detrimental to the state and the state's people than letting some
100%. Well,
potheads
but that's
get
also
high
why,
on-
I mean, when you're talking about income tax, you can't have one state. I don't think, I mean, there's no way that would work, right? You can't have one state say, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. You
All it
would need
takes
a
is one to
coalition.
start the domino effect.
You would need a coalition of states. And
That's
then,
called a convention of states.
well, it is a
Damn right.
convention of states, right?
I mean,
Right.
once we do term limits, then everyone goes, what do you guys think about 14% to the feds flat? And then everyone goes, yeah, sounds good to me. Then you pass it. Then what do they do? What are you
Look,
gonna do?
I wouldn't even care going back to the way it was, right? So, let Delaware pay 4% and California pay 22% or whatever, I wouldn't even have a problem with that going back to the way, just repeal it.
Wait, so that was based off of population?
Right. Yeah, it was based off census. So
Hmm.
if
They
you
wouldn't
got
be screaming
rid,
about, they wouldn't be screaming about amnesty after a
no,
while. then, I'll
no,
tell
they
you that.
wouldn't either. They'd be shipping a whole lot of people back to where they came
Well,
from. And
That
not just,
makes sense though, because I mean,
not
the
just
more
out of this
people-
country.
the more people, the more money that's required
Correct.
from their mindset.
Correct.
So yeah, California should pay higher taxes, and like Wyoming or Utah should pay less money, or Delaware.
So, I mean, I would guess that if you repealed, because once the 16th Amendment went into effect, it basically nullified whatever was in Article 2 or Article 1, Section 2 and Section 9 concerning taxes, right? Those were the portions of that I read that were crossed out. And then we went back and I said, all right, well, this is what it says. We need to know what it says, but that was amended by the 16th Amendment. So I would guess, I mean, those words are still there. So if perfect world, right? If the 16th Amendment got overturned, got repealed, just like the 18th did, does all that in the Constitution just go back in force? And I'm asking, I don't know. Do they just take the strike through out of it? And now we're right back to
Making more money.
well, no, now we're right back to apportionment. That's what I mean. If you got rid of income tax, do you just go right back to apportionment then at that point?
Well, I don't think
I
they would
think
actually
if you
get rid of
repeal
it
then
without
you'd have
having.
to.
Well, I don't think they would repeal it without having a replacement.
Something in place.
Yeah, they're not going to just say, all right, well, let's get rid of it
And look,
figure it out.
I'm not opposed. I mean, I get it, right? I mean, we got a levy on the ballot right now for North Ridgeville. We need a new police station. I get it. You got to spend money to have a nice place to live, right? Roads cost money, infrastructure costs money. The problem is obviously they don't need as much money as they're taking in. If the federal government follows the Constitution, they don't need all this money. Give this money back to the states.
Yeah, and then you
You
wouldn't
know
have
what?
to go to the
Before we get rid
taxpayers
of
to
the
get
16th,
a new police station, because the city would be bringing in more money.
yeah, probably, right? Before we get rid of the 16th, let's get rid of the Board of Education, the Federal Board of Education. Let's get rid of
Department of Labor.
Department of Labor, right? Send it all
HUD.
back to the states.
List
man.
goes on.
Yeah, it does. The list is amazing. And you guys know, I mean, when we went through the articles, that spells out what the government's allowed to do. And if it's not in there, show me HUD, show me housing and urban development, anywhere in the Constitution. Show me education, the word education. It's not in there. And that's all money that could be going back to the states. So yeah, I don't have a problem with paying for what the federal government needs, but they're taking so much money that they don't need. And now I see now that the debt ceiling today is going to Biden's desk to be signed. They raised it
That's
again.
unbelievable.
Another
Still can't believe.
until December
Still
3rd.
can't believe that
Until
McConnell
December 3rd.
crashed.
Now, well, McConnell now I don't know. right? It's McConnell. McConnell sent him an email though, basically, I guess, and I read it, or a email or a letter or whatever statement.
Strongly worded
saying,
letter.
look, well, yeah, but he said, hey, look, you know what? We played this game and we did it this time because the left, the Democrats are saying they needed this time for reconciliation. So we did this one time. Do not. And if you read it, I mean, it's worded pretty strongly. He says, do not come back to me looking for help because we're not going to give it to you again. The Democrats they're saying it needs to be bipartisan, but it doesn't. They have the power to do it themselves, but they know it's an utter failure and they don't want to be on the hook for this. That's why they don't want to go to reconciliation, right? They want the Republicans on board with this so they can say, hey, look, this was bipartisan. This wasn't just us. But if McConnell has any balls at all, he's going to stick to that.
So are you saying that it's a carefully laid trap from that McConnell set?
Well, I don't know because they could have not signed off on this thing. They could have just said, you know what? Nope. Go to reconciliation. But the Democrats are the ones claiming that they didn't have time. They didn't have something in place so he gave it to them. So I guess now at least they're not going to be able to say, well, you wouldn't work with us. He gave them the extension they wanted.
Yeah,
But here we are again. Here's the debt ceiling going up.
But when
And who's going to pay for it?
when December happens and they can't strike a deal, all of Congress is going to be at fault, not either side, and none of them want to stand there with egg on their face.
Well,
I really wish it was that easy. I wish I could raise my debt ceiling.
yeah, right. Do you know how rich I'd be right now if I could raise my debt
Yeah,
ceiling?
right.
I would never be living check to check again.
Yep.
I could just say, well, shit, you know what? This is going to be a tight month. So I'm going to go ahead and take our debt ceiling up to about, $15,000 this month. Oh, perfect. And then when I can't pay that 15, now I'm going to have to raise it again because I don't have the money to pay the 15,000 back. So I'm going to have to raise it to 25. That's exactly what the federal government's doing here. So, but they get the money from us and they're going to keep getting it from us because we keep allowing them to do this until there's no more money to take and the federal government's going to default and we're going to be screwed because this is not sustainable.
What's that mean when your basement fills up with sewage, like with the backup?
Right.
Do you just raise your ceiling, add another level, or do you get rid of the shit?
Right. I saw that. That was brilliant.
You fix the pump.
You drain the swamp out of your basement is what you do.
Hey, nice. Nicely played there.
So, all right. So takeaways from today. So prior to 1913, the government made their money mainly off tariffs, flat taxes per Article 1, Section 2, and Section 9. Progressives kept trying to sneak in income taxes, but were knocked back by SCOTUS every time. So the progressives then come up with the 16th. Conservatives support the 16th Amendment, thinking there was no way it's going to be ratified by the states. And it was ratified February 25th, 1913. And here we are. So anything about the 16th Amendment, anything about income taxes? What do you guys think? Questions? If you read
I just want them to stop taxing my overtime. Damn it.
well, and it gets to a point where if you work enough overtime, it's not worth it to work the overtime anymore because they take so much of your money away.
And even bonuses too. That shit gets taxed. People get
Everything.
bonuses, but they tax it. And that's
Yeah,
BS.
my severance is
Look,
gonna get
But
hammered.
and there's nothing you can do because it's right in the Constitution, right? The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes or on incomes from whatever source derived. Period. From whatever source. Doesn't matter where your money comes from, they can tax it. And this is the thing with Biden and his $600, right? Now they're looking, anytime you use a pay service, PayPal, you use Venmo, you use Cash App, anytime your Venmo account goes over $600 for the year, this is what he wants to do. Anytime it goes over 600 for the year, not per payer, right? Not from somebody giving you $600. Anytime the total amount goes over $600, you're getting 1099 now.
I believe that's only if it's like a service though. Like if you're like paying somebody back for dinner or a bar tab or something
I
like
don't
that.
know. Is that
I'm
right?
pretty
Because
sure.
that's not what that's not the way I
that doesn't
understood it.
count. I think it's only for services rendered.
That's not the way I understood it. And they're smarter than that because you're gonna see a whole lot of, hey, man. just
Well,
pay your rent."
then that's just gonna drive, like, nobody's gonna use PayPal or Venmo or anything like that.
No,
and
you're gonna be putting
those
cash on
apps
your
are gonna
mattress.
crash. Yeah, so that's why, I mean, I don't see how that could be for like paying somebody back a taxi cab or something like that, because that would, like, those companies, Venmo and PayPal, or who are big conglomerates, would be totally against that.
Well,
They'll
they
stop
are.
people from using those apps.
They are.
What is he gonna try to do? Is he gonna try to
sometimes I
executive
send
order it, or is he gonna
money
try to
via
get the
Facebook.
Congress to
that?
pass it?
So wait a minute. So you guys are talking about the $600
The
reporting to the
IRS.
IRS. Are
Yes.
you sure, like 100%, and you're not just like pretty sure that it's through the different apps? It's like transaction through different apps. It was my understanding that it was your personal bank account transactions. It's individual transactions in your personal bank account. It doesn't have anything to do with Venmo.
No,
So
it
somebody
does.
well, yeah, because that transaction gets deposited into your personal bank account.
I am 100% sure that the way it scans now, that anytime you go over $600 on any of those, they have to 1099 you.
So if I pay my kid,
Well, right.
Turn
But
that
but
Mute
but
yourself.
it's they don't it doesn't come right out of your Venmo and appear as cash in your hand.
What do you mean?
It you have a Venmo account, but in order to get that out, it goes into your personal bank account. Like you have to transfer it into your personal bank account.
Well,
It's
not
not like
necessarily.
You
Not
think-
necessarily. You can leave it in Venmo and pay with Venmo. I do that. I just leave it in Venmo. Venmo has their own card
All
now.
right, so it's individual transactions in your different accounts, right? I'm telling you,
It's
the
not
whole
individual transactions, Jeff. It's not. It is when you're talking about
The
the
dollar amount.
Yeah, it is the dollar amount. When you're talking about Venmo, PayPal, it is once you go over $600 income into that account, regardless of the source, they're going to 1099 you and you're going to be on the hook for taxes for it.
so if I give
100%.
my kid $100 a month to help her out, and I do it via Facebook app, which goes through PayPal, they're gonna 1099 her?
Well, I mean, that's what they're saying now. But like Chris said, I don't know. I mean, because you're allowed to give gifts right now.
Yeah, I'm not looking at that, because I use PayPal and Venmo and all that. Like,
Oh, sure, my pool business is all.
I mean,
Venmo.
just for fantasy football leagues, like, we do payments through PayPal.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
We
gonna
got a-
get taxed for holding people's money.
We got a Hockin Hills trip coming up that everyone had to give the person, $500 for this big chateau we're getting. And so they're gonna pay taxes on that from
No,
freaking
that's
seven
BS.
couples.
It is BS, and he knows he's not going to get it through. So it's going to be a voluntary. It's apparently it's voluntary for 3 years. Now, my guess is if it's voluntary, that they're probably not actually going to tax those people, but they're going to, I guess, use them to monitor, see how this system is going to work.
But it's twofold. It's
What-
twofold. It's
Well,
it's
I'll tell you the whole purpose behind this.
to get the
how many-
IRS numbers bigger, right?
How many guns are out there that are less than $600
Mm,
compared to those that are more?
it's a good point.
It's all about
I don't
tracking.
know if that's the whole purpose.
Well,
It's part of
yeah,
it.
It's
Tell
definitely
you
part of
what,
it. I mean, there's a
if-
reason that
if-
the IRS agents have doubled since Biden took over.
Well, he wants to double them. He wants to increase their budget by 1.8 billion.
Yeah.
How
and
many people
ATF
would
and the ATF. The ATF is looking to increase their numbers by 5 times by 2030? Or no, in the next.
It's all
6
about
years.
taxation, man. Government wants your money, period. And they think they're entitled to your money.
Tell you what, if your average firearm was $900, that number would be 900. Just saying.
You're probably
Mhm.
onto
Well,
something, but it's
no,
also
that's it. You're
about
probably onto something there.
having the reason. It's about having the reason to double the size of the IRS. They're not just gonna do it just without a reason.
So
So how many Venmo accounts can we have? I might have about 5,000 by by the
well,
end of
you're
the
gonna see a whole lot, you're gonna see a whole lot of side hustles going cash only, right? You know, whatever you're
I
doing is
put
gonna
a, I
be.
put a.
Herein lies the issue, though. I
It's
mean, yeah, you see
$300 if you're gonna pay me by check or card.
Yeah, but I mean, the side hustle, but
$150
everything's
cash.
going electronic nowadays, though.
Yeah.
What's
Guys,
that?
I'm just reading, it says, this is all a provision in the American Rescue Act, which goes into effect January 1st, 2022. And this $600 per year only applies to sellers of goods and services, not personal payments as if someone pays you back for dinner.
But how long are they
That's what
going
I
to put?
thought.
Right, but how long are they going to put up with that? Because you know what's going to happen? Every good and service is going to be
Gonna be
friends
for
and
dinner.
family.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right. So how long are they going to put up with that? They're not going to put up with that. They're not going to allow you all of a sudden to make
No, it's just a foot in the door.
$27,000 a
It's a
year
foot
from
in the
friends
door.
and family.
Danny's right. It's a foot in the door. What it's,
Foot in
it's
the
give
door.
and take, and then eventually they'll take more, and eventually they'll take more, and it's
They'll
gonna,
tax everything.
Well,
be
and
for
it's
everything.
it's funny. So when they initially went for the 3% on the wealthiest, right back in 1894, their thing was that look, it's never, don't freak out. It's never going to be more than 3%. We're only going after the wealthiest. It's just 3% if you make over $4,000 a year, which was a huge sum of money back then. It's only going to be 3%. No worries. Well, does anybody know how high the tax rate got under Reagan, before Reagan started slashing taxes? Does anybody know where it was?
Like, was it 30-40%?
Oh, shit, it was higher than that. It was
86%.
60 or 70.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
86%.
yeah, it was higher.
So they can say it's only going to stay at 3%. They can say it's only $600. They can say it's only for goods and services. It ain't. There's no way. The first time they see that you're making $10,000 from friends and family, you're done. Hit. Going to change. There's going to be a provision in there. Guarantee it. Look, we're not after friends and family. Right now, you're
Right.
only getting the watered down press release version, right? Wait
Yeah.
until this thing really hits. So now, yeah, friends and family, hey, that's all okay, unless you go over $1,000.
Well, this is
Now-
that. This is the beginning of that, though, because it is literally going back to when it was at 3%. This is setting up for 10, 15, 20 years from now when cash is no longer even valid and everything is electronic, and they'll be able to monitor every single cent you make and spend.
Yep, 100%. 100%. 16th Amendment, boys and girls.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that cash is an endangered species.
No, sure it is.
It won't take long before no one's going to accept it. I mean, you're already seeing it in certain places where, like amusement parks and stuff like that, they're not accepting cash anymore.
U.S. currency.
Yeah, U.S. currency, which is 100% valid in this country, says so on the bill itself, and there's places not accepting it. And if you want to go there, you better have a gift card or a debit card or a credit card.
So that's the 16th in a nutshell. If you want to know more, there's plenty of places to look. But that's how it came to be. That's what it says. 2 weeks from now, we'll talk about the 17th, which is screwed up too. And we'll do the 18th. We'll get them both out of the way. 19th, pretty easy.
Which ones are 17 and 18 again?
17 is where we start electing senators by the popular vote instead of being appointed by the states legislatures. And 18 is prohibition.
Is it me, or is it like the higher the number gets, the more unconstitutional it seems?
Well, sure it does. Because you know what, the higher the number gets, the more removed you are from the founders,
Yeah.
right? You don't
Yep.
see the founders in the Bill of Rights getting all unconstitutional on us. The founders, for all the amendments the founders put in here, were things to protect us more. And once the founders started dying off, then that's where it starts.
It should have ended the Constitution with, and there will be no more amendments after this. Period.
Well, okay. And women aren't voting.
Okay, you got me there.
Blacks aren't voting. 18-year-olds aren't voting, although that might not be a bad thing. I was pretty
Yeah.
stupid when I was 18.
Since they're
cortex isn't developed until what is it 24 or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know if my cortex is developed yet.
My first time voting outside, after I left my parents' house, I voted Democrat. Haven't since, but yeah, you're young and dumb at that time. I voted for Kerry against Bush. Never again, though.
All right. All right. So if nobody else has anything,
I
anything
got
else?
something.
To be fair,
learned-
if you voted for Bush, that's still a Democrat.
Sure
Well, in
turned out to
hindsight,
be.
yeah, in hindsight.
Sure turned out to be.
I learned yesterday that there's only one president that didn't sign any executive orders. And we'll talk about it in the post.
All right.
Only one president that didn't sign any executive orders.
Yeah.
Really?
And it wasn't, and it wasn't George Washington.
Probably the guy that died a month into office.
Didn't have time.
Yeah.
All right, on to the post. Brandon, let's go. There, I got it in.
All right. So who do we got? Yeah, let's go, Brandon. All right. So looks like pretty much everybody is here, right? Or used to be here. For those of you, Mary's new. For those of you that haven't been here, so what happens now is that we go into a post discussion where it's not recorded and you're allowed to pretty much talk about anything you want. It was supposed to when it started out, we were going to continue the discussion about the 16th. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it is game on. Bring your
Event session.
conspiracy theories, bring your drinks. Sometimes it gets nuts. Sometimes it's over in an hour. It's hard to tell. But that one is not recorded. And really anything goes there. So what happens is Renee will go on the Everyday Constitution page. She'll put a link up for the post discussion. You click on that, you get right in, and it's a whole lot less formal. Talk about anything we want to talk about.
Yep.
So yeah,
So on that,
on that, Renee, and I guess
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna go out,
stop recording and we'll
stop recording, and we'll go out with the song.
Good talk, guys.